Joe Gardner is a middle school band teacher in New York City who is absolutely, completely, without question in the wrong job. At least that's what he thinks. He stands in front of his class counting beats, calling out notes, trying to get these kids to care about jazz the way he cares about jazz, and honestly most of them don't. But then one of them, a girl named Connie, picks up her trombone and just goes for it. She gets completely lost in the music, closes her eyes, forgets she's in a room full of kids laughing at her, and Joe sees himself in that moment so hard it almost breaks him. Because that's him. That's always been him. Lost in music before he even knows what lost means. And here's the thing about Joe that the movie sets up right away and I think is so important. He's not a failure. He's not a loser. He's a genuinely talented piano player who grew up watching his father play jazz, who fell in love with music the moment some guy at a club floated off the stage on a wave of piano chords, and who has been chasing that feeling his whole adult life. The problem isn't talent. The problem is timing. The universe keeps hitting pause on Joe Gardner right before the good part starts. So the principal shows up at his classroom door with what she thinks is great news. Joe is getting the full-time position. Permanent. Benefits. Pension. The whole package. Joe smiles and says thank you, and inside he is absolutely dying because a permanent teaching job feels like a door closing, not a door opening. His mom Libba is thrilled, of course, because moms are practical and she has watched her son wash his underwear in her shop and chase gigs that never quite land, and she just wants him to be okay. There is real love in her wanting him to take the safe road. But Joe isn't built for the safe road. Never was. Then the phone rings and everything changes. It's Curly, one of Joe's former students, calling to say he's now drumming for the Dorothea Williams Quartet, one of the most legendary jazz acts in New York, and their regular piano player just skipped town, so there's an opening tonight at the Half Note Club, and does Joe want to come audition? And I want you to understand what Dorothea Williams means to Joe. He literally says he would die a happy man just to perform with her. That sentence is going to become very ironic very quickly. Joe practically runs to the club. He gets up on stage with Dorothea, she hits one note on the piano, the band starts playing, and Joe just falls in. He finds that place he's always talked about. He gets lost in it the way he described that piano player getting lost all those years ago in that jazz club with his dad. Dorothea watches him, and when it's over she just says, "Joe Gardner, where have you been?" and tells him to get a good suit and be back by 7. Joe walks out of that club and looks up at the marquee and imagines his name on it, and he is so happy, genuinely so happy, that it almost hurts to watch knowing what's coming next. Because what comes next is a manhole cover. Joe is so busy celebrating, calling people, pointing at things, being completely overwhelmed with joy, that he walks straight into an open manhole and falls in. And just like that, Joe Gardner is dead. Or almost dead. His body is in the hospital on life support, but his soul, his actual soul, is now floating up a very long escalator toward a giant white light at the top labeled The Great Beyond. And the look on his face when he realizes what's happening, pure, desperate, furious refusal. He is not going. He is not done. He just got his shot. He turns around and starts running. This is where the movie becomes something else entirely, because Joe's panicked sprint in the wrong direction sends him tumbling off the edge of the afterlife, and he lands in a place that is somehow even more confusing. A bright, colorful, cloud-like realm full of little glowing blob-shaped souls just floating around, bumping into things, learning how to be. This is the Great Before. Or as they're now calling it thanks to a recent rebrand, the U Seminar. This is where souls come before they go to Earth. They get their personalities here, they get their spark here, and then they get sent down to be born. Joe has accidentally crashed the intake process for new souls. The beings running this place are called Jerry, all of them, every single one, and they look like abstract line drawings that keep shifting shape. They're not threatening, just deeply bureaucratic in that cosmic scale way where everything is cheerful and efficient and utterly indifferent to your personal crisis. Jerry informs Joe that his body is in a holding pattern back on Earth and that technically he's not supposed to be here, but since he is here, they need him to be a mentor to one of the new souls. Joe has no interest in mentoring anyone. He needs to get back to his body before his gig tonight. But then he hears about soul number 22. 22 has been at the U Seminar longer than anyone can properly remember. She has had, at this point, thousands of mentors. Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, Mother Teresa, Copernicus, Muhammad Ali, Marie Antoinette. Every single one of them gave up on her. She doesn't want to go to Earth. She thinks Earth is pointless, overcrowded, loud, and generally not worth the trouble. She floats in mist, does her Sudoku puzzles, shows up to these seminars once a week, and that's enough for her. Thank you very much. Joe realizes immediately that he can use this. If he pretends to be 22's mentor long enough to get her Earth Pass, the badge that completes when a soul finds their spark and is cleared to be born, he can steal that pass and use it to go back to his body. So Joe sneaks into 22's dimension and tells her the truth. He's not actually a mentor, he's a jazz teacher who fell down a hole and he just needs her pass. And 22, who has heard every manipulation tactic from the greatest minds in human history, finds this refreshingly honest. She agrees to a deal. If Joe can help her find her spark and complete the Earth pass, she'll hand it over and he can go back to his gig. Neither of them actually expects it to work. Joe because he's in a hurry and 22 because she has literally never cared about anything in her entire pre-existence. They go to the Hall of Everything first, this enormous space full of every possible thing that could inspire a soul, every smell and sight and texture and concept Earth has to offer. Joe is like a tour guide who is way too stressed to actually enjoy the tour, pushing 22 from one thing to the next, cooking, firefighting, dance, library science, and 22 is just standing there going, meh, to everything. No reaction. Nothing lands. And the clock is ticking. I've seen this dynamic in real life, by the way, trying to show someone you love something that means everything to you and watching them be completely unmoved. It's its own special kind of lonely. Then they discover the zone. This is the space between the physical and spiritual world, the place where humans go when they're so deeply focused or absorbed in something that they lose track of time in themselves. Musicians, athletes, artists, writers, they've all been there. Joe recognizes it immediately because he was there during his audition. And hanging out in the zone are a group of people called the Mystics Without Borders, led by a guy named Moonwind Stardancer who, on Earth, is a sign spinner outside a shop in Chelsea but up here is essentially a cosmic navigator. Moonwind tells Joe that if they wait for the right alignment, 6:30 p.m., he can perform a ritual that will pull Joe's soul back into his body. Joe is elated. There's still time. But then they rush the process and everything goes wrong. Joe leaps toward his body too early and instead of landing back in himself, his soul ends up in the body of a therapy cat named Mr. Mittens. And 22, with no soul of her own, accidentally falls into Joe's human body instead. So now we have Joe the middle-aged jazz teacher trapped inside a small hospital cat, and 22, an ancient soul who has never been to Earth, never had a body, never tasted food or felt texture or heard music through actual ears, walking around New York City in Joe's body wearing a hospital gown with absolutely no idea what she's doing. What follows is honestly one of the best stretches of the movie, and I think it's because it forces you to see ordinary life the way someone experiencing it for the first time would see it. 22, who was completely bored by everything in the Hall of Everything, steps outside into New York City and the noise and the smell and the chaos hits her all at once and she screams. But then she smells something. A gyro from a street cart. And she takes a bite and it is the most overwhelming thing she has ever experienced in her entire eternal existence. She literally screams at how good it is. And then she goes quiet and says it's not horrible. Which is maybe the most accurate description of falling in love with a city I've ever heard. Joe meanwhile is doing his best as a cat. Which is not great but not terrible. They have hours before Moonwind can perform the swap ritual at 6:30, so they navigate across the city, 22 in Joe's body stumbling through subway cars and sidewalks and accidentally getting lost every 30 seconds. Joe trotting along on 4 legs trying to give directions. And the city starts to slowly, quietly, get under 22's skin. A leaf falls. A jazz musician plays on a corner and 22 stops and feels something. A man on the subway complains about his commute and then talks about how he's going to catch a show tonight and his whole face changes and 22 watches that happen and files it away somewhere. They end up at Dez's barbershop because 22 accidentally destroyed Joe's hair with a razor and Joe needs to look presentable for his gig. And this is where the movie does something really subtle and really beautiful. Dez is a barber. He wanted to be a veterinarian, had it all planned out, then his daughter got sick and barber school was cheaper so that's what he did. And he is genuinely, completely happy. Not resigned happy. Not convincing himself happy. Truly content. He loves his job, he loves his customers, he loves the conversations he has in that chair. 22, sitting in Joe's body with Joe's cat on her lap, asks Dez questions Joe has never thought to ask in all the years he's been coming in, and Dez opens up in a way he never has before. When Joe realizes later that he never asked Dez about his life, never once in years of friendship, it stings. You're supposed to. Then they have to go to Joe's mom's shop because the pants ripped. I told you the day just keeps going, and this is where 22 does something that Joe has never been able to do. She says out loud in his voice what Joe has never said to his mother. That music isn't just his career. It's his reason for living. That he's afraid if he died today his life would have amounted to nothing. And Libba, who has been fighting him on this for years out of love, out of fear, out of the very real practicality of watching her husband struggle, she hears it. She pulls out his father's old wool suit and she gets her friends and they fix it. She says Ray would have been so proud of him. She says like I've always been. And Joe, the real Joe, sitting in a cat across the room, hears his mother say out loud something she maybe never said clearly enough before. That is a quiet, devastating scene, and it earns its tears. By now 22 is in real trouble, not from danger but from the opposite. She's starting to like it. She made a song on the subway great. She watched a guy on the street sing and felt something shift inside her. She has a pocket full of small things, a maple seed, a lollipop wrapper, a thread from Libba spool, and she holds them like they matter. Because they do. Joe sees this and tells her those aren't purposes. That's just regular old living. He doesn't say it cruelly. He just doesn't understand yet what he's actually saying. When they finally meet Moonwind at the half note at 6:30 for the soul swap, everything goes perfectly. They're back in the right bodies. Joe is human again. He has 40 minutes before his gig. But 22 grabs her Earth pass and refuses to give it to Joe. She wants to stay. She wants to keep living, keep discovering, keep eating gyros and watching leaves fall. She runs. Joe chases. It gets ugly. He tells her she only loves Earth because she was in his body and it's his spark she's borrowing, not hers. And 22, who has spent an eternity being told she'll never be good enough, absorbs this like a punch. Her Earth pass lights up. She earned it, the last box filled, but now she doesn't want it. Not if it means Joe thinks she stole it. Terry, the cosmic accountant who has been hunting Joe down this whole time to fix the soul count, swoops in and grabs Joe and drags him back to the afterlife. And 22, heartbroken, her confidence shattered, disappears into the zone and becomes a lost soul, one of those twisted, unrecognizable creatures Joe saw earlier, consumed by obsession and disconnection. Her obsession is the thing Joe said to her. She keeps replaying it. She's not good enough. She has no purpose. Her voices, which are all the voices of every mentor who ever gave up on her, including Joe's, won't stop. Joe makes it back to the great before and he sees 22 in this state and it hits him like a wall. He caused this. He took a soul who was finally opening up to life and he crushed her with the exact same message she's been hearing for millennia. He runs to her and he gives her back her little collection of things, the maple seed, the thread, the enough. Except the Jerrys are watching. And they are, in their abstract cosmic way, moved. They give Joe another chance. Just like that. Back into his body, second chance, go live your life, oh another chance. Just like that. Back into his body, second chance, go live your life and please watch where you step this time. Joe goes back to the half note. He plays the show with Dorothea Williams. He is extraordinary. His mom is in the audience yelling, "That's my Joey." The crowd goes wild. Curly grins behind his drum kit. Everything Joe has ever wanted is happening exactly the way he dreamed it. And then it's over. The crowd files out. The band is packing up. Dorothea tells Joe he was great. You play 100 shows and one of them is killer, she says, and tonight was that show. Joe asks what happens next and she says they come back tomorrow night and do it all again. And Joe stands there on the sidewalk in his father's wool suit and he doesn't feel what he thought he'd feel. He thought this moment would fix something. He thought once he got here he'd finally feel complete. Dorothea tells him a story. A fish swimming around looking for something called the ocean. An older fish says that's what you're in right now. And the young fish says, This is just water. What I want is the ocean. Joe goes home. He sits at his piano in the dark. He starts to play. And as he plays, memories come. The Euro, his mom's shop, the Leaf, the jazz club, Connie on her trombone, Des in the barber chair, 22 running on a grate making a song out of nothing. All that regular old living. And he understands now what he couldn't understand before, what he was too busy chasing to see. The purpose isn't the thing at the end. It's everything in between. It's the water. He was always in the ocean. The movie ends with Joe choosing to live every minute of it. Not performing every minute. Not achieving every minute. Just living. That's the whole movie. That's what it was building to all along. And honestly, I think this is one of those films that hits differently depending on where you are in your life. If you're young and still chasing something, it feels like permission to keep going. If you're older and you've already spent years running toward one thing, it might make you look around and realize you've been standing in something beautiful this whole time and didn't notice. Either way it gets you. Pixar really said let's make a movie about the meaning of life and then actually did it. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.